whole Lincoln collection of cartes de visite here, which is really great. And some of this you don't see. It's a mixture of things that are fairly common and things that you don't see quite as often. For example, right over here you've got the Lincoln and Washington apotheosis. These were made, like, I don't know how many, uncounted numbers after Lincoln's assassination. You know, him going up to be with God after his assassination, and here's Washington greeting him and putting the crown of peace over his head. So there's several variations of it, but I love seeing that. And then you've got here's Edwin Booth, brother of John Wilkes, lithographs of Mary Todd Lincoln, one of the many variations of Lincoln portraits in here. Funeral procession, New York City. I mean, if you were looking to start a collection, you could do it all. Just buy everything beneath this countertop and you would be set. Wow, that's great. So, yeah, there's some nice pieces in here. I'm really interested. You've got, looks like probably, I'm guessing that's probably a tin type, wonderful officer. It's a general, which is unusual, right? To see generals in a tin type or an amber type, since those were one of a kind personal objects, to see a high-ranking officer, because there were so few generals compared to other ranks, to see a very personal hard plate image of a general officer is rare. You don't see them very often, and that's particularly nice. Great condition.
He has his sash, right? And you can see the stars on the shoulder, or no?
He's got his tinted sash. From where I'm standing, I can see his shoulder straps, but we're not close enough where I can see what's on them. But he's got his sword. He's holding his sword, got his hand in his jacket. Really, really nice.
What are some of the first things you look for when you're looking for an image?
Well, for me, I'm a bit of a condition freak. So it's the quality. If the quality of the image, the tone, the contrast, that certainly will catch my attention immediately, and that's why I immediately went to this image of General Smith. But I'm also, content is huge. When you've got when the soldier or a civilian. If the soldier, for example, is wearing something that's unique, maybe it's a special kind of haversack, or he has interesting insignia on his uniform, for example, the Signal Corps insignia, those details will catch my attention. Interesting uniforms, zouaves, for example, will catch my attention. So what I'm seeing, that content, and then of course, if the soldier is identified, then that's a big part of it too, because I know that I can begin to start, there's an opportunity to do research and to learn more about that soldier's story, which puts all of that content that I'm seeing into the larger context of his life, of his service during the war, and that larger generation of folks that were alive during the 19th century.
Now,
so all those together.
Now, usually if you talk about unique uniforms, if you see a 79th New York Highlander, that's not something you would buy, right? That's not.
No. I would contact Paul who's, and say this is probably for him.
Very good, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the thing is, as there's sometimes I see images that I really love, but if I know someone who I know would love it more, that's the truth. I would then reach out to them and say, listen, here's a great image that you probably ought to have.
And all the more reason to get involved in the hobby and the community, I would say.
Well, yeah, I think so, because I've often talked about the communities being caretakers, generous, want to help, want to feel the passion and the excitement for collecting, for the hobby. And when you got friends that care and you can share it with, that makes it even more fun. So that's an important part of the equation. I would also say, even being here today at the Union Drummer Boy, we're here in Gettysburg, PA. I got to stop by Union Drummer Boy to be able to see and inspect the photos. That's also great too, because seeing them physically and having an opportunity to see how the light hits them, how they look. If Brendan was here right now, we might be opening the case, right, to actually physically inspect them. That's something that really helps you as a collector to develop the knowledge and the experience that helps you in a bunch of ways. It can help you spot great images. It can help you spot fakes. So getting out and seeing things is really helpful. Whether you do it here at the Union Drummer Boy, if you do it at another dealer's shop, or even in museums, having that opportunity, that's really important, I think. So, when you're looking at these images, you're seeing the descriptions, you're seeing basically what's known. There's captions for each of these. What we don't really know so much is the provenance of these photographs. Were they in an album that was broken up? Were they owned by a certain family? A lot of that is lost. In some cases, we know who the photographer was because the back of the photograph and sometimes the front of the photograph will have the person's name. And that can be a real challenge because you can look at images and you're not really sure where it actually came from, which introduces a piece that I've written for the next issue of the magazine on connoisseurship. And it's this idea that like the wine steward who has tasted so many wines that they can tell you what vintage it was or what vineyard it came from. The same thing is true with photographs. If you look at enough of these images, you can begin to get a sense of who made them, where they were made, are they authentic or are they fake? This is the kind of, the idea of this connoisseurship, and many of the collectors, and I gotta give a big shout out to Dom Serrano. He wrote one of the original Confederate Faces books back in the 80s or 90s. when Dom offered and volunteered to write a story about Charles Reese, who's a Richmond photographer, he surfaced the term connoisseur and connoisseurship. And I asked him about that. Tell me the origins of how you came to use the word connoisseur to describe your relationship with photographs taken by this Richmond photographer. And Dom explained to me, he said, I've been looking at these images for 40 plus years, and he specialized in photographs by Reese of Richmond. And so he can look at these photographs and he looks at the characteristics. He looks at the way they were tinted. He looks at the lighting. He looks at the way the subjects are posed. He knows the chairs and the other studio props that were used. And so Reese was unusually unique because he would sign his photographs. You can see his little signature, but he didn't do it for all of them, only a smaller number. So Dom has that ability. He's got that radar, that Reese radar, that connoisseur, that only a connoisseur could have. And so he'll go in there and spot Reese images, and he'll be able to say, hey, this is attributed to Reese. So only a connoisseur can do that. And I don't want to scare you into thinking that that this is rarefied ground and only a few people can walk. It's not true. If you study photographs long enough, you'll begin to develop those same skills and those same sensibilities that someone like Dom Serrano has.
And one of the ways to study this would probably be Military Images magazine, right?
I would highly recommend a subscription. No, it is the magazine. It was established in 1979, and it was created at a time when not much was known about Civil War photographs. The 1960s collecting revolution of relics, Civil War relics, was about 20 years old at that point. And so there was a lot of passion and a lot of desire and a desire for knowledge. And it was hard to find that knowledge about all the relics that were out there. So Military Images and other magazines are founded about that time to serve the community of collectors and give them information. And so 40 plus years later, we still do that today. The mission is the same. We showcase images, we interpret them, and we preserve them. And so we're all really about exploring these photographs and giving you the tools that you need, the knowledge that you need, so when you walk into a place like the Union Drummer Boy and see these images, you're not coming in cold. You have a good idea of what you're seeing, and then while you're here, these images are adding to the knowledge that you've got through the magazine and other sources.